Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Passionate People and Preposterous Peeves. I'm your host Ike. I'm here with Era. Say hello, Era.
Sup? Hey, how's it going, dude?
How are you doing today?
Aw, dude, I'm doing good. I got my coffee. It's cold and chilly, and I'm not working, so it's lots of good things. How are you doing, bud?
All the good going on. I'm doing pretty great. I was just kind of curious. What's your favorite dad joke?
My favorite dad joke. What do you call a deer with no eyes?
I don't know.
No idea. What do you call a deer with no eyes and no legs?
I don't know.
Still no idea. I heard that in a children's book so long ago, and it's the only joke I know that is appropriate to tell children.
The source had it right.
Oh, yeah.
Do you have a favorite underutilized word?
Fucky.
All right, you
Fucky.
gotta use it in a sentence.
That was fucky. So if something is, imagine something is something and you don't know how to describe it. You just say it's fucky because people will infer your meaning. That's the great thing about language is it's all absolute nonsense. So it's like, oh, dude, that's hella fucky of you. That might be cool or it might be bad, but it's whatever. So it's a placeholder for I don't know what the fuck I'm saying, but you'll interpret this in a meaningful way. And
I
isn't it
pass
really
the buck
that?
on to you, sir. Figure this out.
It's not pass the buck, it's pass the fucky. Pass the fucky on to you.
Is there a movie that you'll never skip when you're channel surfing?
I don't channel surf, but dude, Mad Max, dude, Mad Max Fury Road was such a good fucking flick. You saw that movie?
Oh yeah.
Dude, so good, right? Like, right out of the gates, just high adrenaline, so cool. And also, like, it's not a shitty movie. It's, like, cool and action packed, but also, like, an awesome feminist message. And then just lots of, like, hot people. So it's just
It
excellent
slaps in
all
all
around.
directions.
It slaps, as so many things do, it slaps omnidirectionally. So, high quality film.
Growing up, did you have a favorite book?
Oh, did I? I probably did. I don't read no more. Um, I loved the Harry Potter books as a kid, but then I transitioned, so now I guess I hate them. Oh, you know what? I loved The Giver when I was a kid, and all my friends gave me shit for it. I was like, wow, this book is the first book I've ever read that makes me feel intellectual and deep. And they were all like, do you remember the part where they have wet dreams? And I was like, yeah, but the rest of this book is really cool and intellectual, right? And they're like, no, it's just about nutting in your sleep. But then I read her book about Lois Lowry is the author, a great author, and I read like all her other books. 'Cause I was like, Giver's so cool, and it's like, oh, this one's just about a girl in the Holocaust, not as fun. So Giver was definitely the peak.
When you go out to eat at a fast food restaurant, do you have a favorite value menu item?
No, because I'm vegan, bud. So French fries by default,
I mean,
water.
that French fry value though.
That French fry value, but even then, dude, I don't trust. I don't trust because they fry it with the meaties.
Do they? No, no, they don't.
They
They're
don't.
different
Okay,
fries.
I don't
At
know.
McDonald's, they don't. They have like eight just because they put out so many fries that they have a different fryer for it.
Oh
I don't
shit.
know if it's intentionally
Well,
for
I haven't been
like
to McDonald's since I was
vegans
like,
and such.
yeah, that's fair. I've been to McDonald's since I was like 5 years old, so I have
Probably
no clue.
for probably for your better for your health.
You've been up to Amy's here though, right?
Oh, of course. Amy's is
What's
the biz.
dude? What's your Amy's order?
Amy's order is chili cheese fries, Amy burger, and a chocolate shake.
Ooh, that's a good one. I get the Rachel. That's the new salad, dude. So good. It's like an Asian salad with a miso ginger dressing. That or like literally four Amy's and then just go to sleep forever.
if you had to evacuate your house, what's the first thing that you grab?
My rabbit. My rabbit, not even close.
What's your rabbit's name?
Mumford. She's dope as hell. She's a little lion head bunny. She's
Does
like
she have a son?
she doesn't. So the reason I named her, she is named after the band, because when I got her, they were like, "Oh, this bunny's definitely a dude." And I was like, "Oh, she's a lion head. She's my little lion man." Mumford and Sons. That's a song of theirs. And I was like, "Yo, let's get your dick chopped off." And then I took her to the vet, and they're like, "Psych, that's a girl." I was like, "Oh, psych, same." And so she's still a girl, but her name is Mumford. And she's 8 years old, and she is the best. And so I would immediately grab her and
Aw.
go.
there a best piece of advice you've ever got that kind of stuck with you over the years?
Oh man, this is such an easy one. But Mark Rosewater, the head designer for Magic the Gathering, always talks about how restrictions breed creativity, and I always think of that whenever I'm like working with kids or working with just in any sort of creative endeavor or literally anything in my life. Like I
Yeah.
am stuck. How do I artificially restrict myself to change my perspective on things and start looking at something new? Um, it's just been such a helpful piece of advice. That and like I don't know if this counts as advice, but just being a child and someone looking at me and just being like, when I got salty that I lost a game of Magic and just being like, nobody cares, dude. And just like getting over myself and like learning to accept loss and like whether it's small or big or failure, whether it's small or big, and then just like persevering and learning and just being like, you know what, nobody gives a shit about me, so I better just like learn how to deal with failure. Which is a rough thing to tell like a 10-year-old, but whatever, it was cool,
It's a good life lesson to learn for sure.
right?
Maybe I should pick up that advice. You have a favorite anecdote to tell?
My favorite anecdote. Okay, so I'm a preschool teacher, or I was until very recently, and I started teaching preschool in in college. So I was working with all these professors' kids, and they were the sweetest kids, and like they knew how to read at 3 years old, and I was like, okay, cool. This is hella preparing me for the real world. And I started a job at a real preschool that had like a lot of families who were lower income who were on financial aid stuff. I was like, oh, I've learned nothing. And the moment that really solidified for me was it was snack time for these kids. And it was, we're outside, all these kids are seated at their tables, and I'm walking around with a bowl of fruit and a bag of goldfish, and I'm putting down their napkins and giving each kid a little scoop of goldfish, like a little piece of apple. And this one boy who was just like big hungry boy just pounded his food super quick, even while I'm still like handing out food to the kids. And he looks at me, 2-year-old boy, chubbiest little cheek, so sweet. His dad would like spike his hair up, so it was like a buzz cut, but he gelled it up into little spikes. And he's like, "Can I have more goldfish?" And I was like, "Oh no, you gotta wait for everyone to finish first," in my preschool teacher voice. And fully maintaining eye contact with me, his face just deadens, and he goes, "Fuck you, bitch." Eye contact. I was like, oh man, this boy has seen someone say that to someone else in that tone. And it was so hard not to laugh. So hard, because I was like, I cannot validate this, but that was
You
the
kept
raddest
validating
thing I have
before.
ever seen. That's so cool.
Oh, look, a personified disaster. How cute.
Exactly. Aw, you have a rough home. Fuck. I'm glad you're here today.
If you could guarantee one of your dreams would come true, which one would it be?
End to capitalism. Capitalism gone. No more capitalism. Capitalism bad. All that stuff. Whatever lefties are supposed to say that.
Did you have a biggest celebrity crush when you were growing up?
Oh, dude, Ewan McGregor. You remember Star Wars prequels,
Oh,
right?
oh.
Dude.
Speak to me about Jesus a little bit more, please.
Oh, man. I remember being a child and just like, I love the Star Wars prequels, but I don't know why. But now I'm gonna go watch every single fucking movie with Ewan McGregor in it I can possibly watch. And it led me watching like Moulin Rouge and just like watching the Elephant Love medley over and over and over, and just watching him sing to Scarlett Johansson. Is it ScarJo? Whoever it is.
No, it's
Who is it?
Irish chick. Oh, it was
Yeah,
Tom Cruise's like first wife.
Yeah, what's her name?
Great question.
Great question. Who knows? Well, and honestly, nobody knows. That's one of the great mysteries of that movie, who that woman was. Um, but yeah, I just remember watching all those movies. The other one was Orlando
Nicole
Bloom.
Kidman.
Nicole Kidman. There we go. That makes sense. She would do that. Honestly, that's so her. The other one though was Orlando Bloom. Like that scene in the Two Towers when he rides the shield
The
down the
shield is a
stairs,
skateboard.
I was like, "Oh my god, what the fuck?" It blew my mind. So my parents, I was a 10-year-old boy, and for my birthday, my parents who were like just were so ready to have the gayest child imaginable. For my birthday, got me a full cardboard Orlando Bloom cutout, like 6 foot tall cardboard cutout of Orlando Bloom that I just kept in my room. And I remember my friends came over for my birthday. I was like, guys, I got Legolas in my room. And they're like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And I didn't save it. And honestly, I am devastated.
Yeah.
I would be so stoked to have that. But yeah, just confusing experiences about very effeminate men. So,
If you could work any of the jobs you've done over the course of your life, but get paid the same as the job where you made the most, which job would you work?
so I had this sick job in Bodega Bay, Northern California, where I would drive around just like stocking homes with like all these rental homes with like toilet paper and paper towels and like picking up laundry and just essentially like it was all these vacation homes that I just kind of took care of, and the whole time I would just listen to music and drink coffee and didn't have to fucking talk to anybody. If I could make if I could make like a decent chunk of change doing that, dude, I would do that for the rest of my life. I could just drive around the coast and not fucking talk to anybody. It would be ideal.
What do you regret not having done or tried before you graduated high school?
Transitioning, getting on hormones.
What are you bad at that you're working to get better at?
I'm really bad at playing the ukulele, like real bad, which was fine up until recently because I was playing for preschoolers. I was like, yo, I know the ABCs, and they're like, that's the fucking best song, dude. Play that 7 times in a row. I'm like, hell yeah, I got this. But now I work at a church and I have to like perform on Sundays. I'm like, oh no, I cannot sing or play this instrument well. And people are like, you play the ukulele. You should do a song. I'm like, absolutely not. Unless everyone there is 2 years old, I'm not doing this. So that's what I'm working on, and I'm still not very good. But it's you know, time and things will maybe make things better. Who knows?
On the flip side of that coin, what are you terrible at but have no intention of improving at and are completely fine with?
Oh, so many things. Sports, uh being like what else am I? Yeah, being like athletic in any capacity. Um I guess mostly that. Oh, uh being into music. I don't understand music. I don't understand why people like it, but I have no intention of learning anything else about it. I'll put on lo-fi if I need to pay attention to something, but it could be literally any song without words, and I'd be like, this is fine.
What's the most bizarre fact you know to be true?
Uh Newborn babies can't drown.
Say what now?
Newborn babies can't drown.
Even after their umbilical cord's been cut?
Yeah, like directly after, like right after they're born, they can't drown.
Why?
Well, because you like, so you get a newborn baby, you're like, oh fuck this baby, you throw it in a pool. Uh, its lungs automatically close up because it's a bodily response from being in the womb. It's like, oh, I'm in water, close up my lungs. So a newborn baby won't drown, but it will suffocate. But
Oh, interesting.
yeah, but its
That's
lungs won't
interesting.
fill up with water. It will just not have enough air and die. So don't recommend, but it's
But
almost
technically,
like
it didn't drown. You didn't drown that baby.
it's homicidal pedantry at its best, which is my favorite type of pedantry.
Uh, so I'm gonna throw a theoretical your way. You have a day with no obligations. Nothing just happened. Nothing's about to happen. You just have 24 hours in a vacuum, effectively. What do you do with that day?
Grind moto for 24 hours. What do you mean? This is like literally every weekend. My partner fucking hates me, but I'm like, no, babe, it's Cube. There's a new Cube. I'm gonna go stay awake for 24 hours and hate myself while I get one trophy after seven games.
So what do you wish you had started sooner?
Hormones. Yo, hormones are lit. Yo, if anyone out here is like, I wonder if I'm like a trans person, bruh, get on T blockers. You don't even have to be a grown up. You're like, hey, I'm worried about puberty. Oh, that's cool. Here, we'll put that on hold until you're ready to deal with it. It's like, oh, sick. And you grow up and you're like, man, maybe I want to go through masculine puberty. And you're like, all right, cool, let's pop off T blockers or E blockers, whatever. And then you're like, actually, I'm so stoked I didn't do this. It's like, oh, bud, here's some new hormones. Let's get on the right one. And it's so rad. So I wish I'd started T blockers earlier. I almost bought them. When I was a kid, I was like looking how to buy illegal hormone replacement therapy pills from China online. And the only thing that stopped me was not having a credit card. But also, I'm glad I didn't do that because I probably would have poisoned myself.
Yeah. When did you first realize that you were trans, do you think?
I mean, like 10. When I was 10 years old, I was like, oh man, I hate being a dude. Every day I wished up I would wake up as a girl, but I was also like, I fucking can't tell anybody
Oh
this.
yeah.
So I just kept it hidden, and then like when I was about 14, I was so close to coming out. Like I was ready to tell everyone, and then like I just freaked out about it, got way too close, and like wasn't ready to like bring out this huge secret that had blown up in my mind. So I just stamped that shit down with toxic masculinity and Magic the Gathering for 10 years, and then at 22 I was like, actually psych, this sucks. Let's transition. But I also fucked up my voice by then, so it's I wish I had done it earlier.
How did you feel when you got into the beginning of transitioning and started like telling people? Or how big a different time was that? You started transitioning when you were 22.
Yeah.
When did you start telling people?
Pretty immediately after, I started by telling my partner and then immediately going to therapy. A couple months of like going to therapy, figuring out my hormone situation, but I told friends, most of my friends, pretty immediately, and then came out a couple months after.
Which felt
And
better, the beginning of transitioning or telling people?
it was weird telling people. It's hard to say. I think it was scarier telling my close friends, but they were immediately accepting, and it made it easier to come out publicly, which I kind of gave less of a shit about then. It was like, you know what, if you're not gonna be here for this, then you're probably not a person I want in my life. So it was a good way of weeding out folks. But I think I'd have to say, like emotionally, that first coming out to like close friends and family meant a lot. Mostly because I had a great fucking support network, it turned out, and it was really incredible to bring this secret essentially to folks that I had hidden it from for years, and to have them be like, "Oh, no shit," but also we hella support you, which
That's
was
awesome.
just yeah, it was. I feel very lucky.
So, if that's something that you wish you had started sooner, what do you wish you had ended sooner?
Being a man. No, something I wish ended sooner was not being in therapy. I definitely had massively untreated depression, and to the point of like suicidal ideation. And I was like, no, I have a psych degree. This is going to be fine. I'm going to take care of this. And turns out, nah, you need someone else to take care
Yeah.
of that.
If you could go back in time and tell yourself one sentence, what would it be and when would it be?
I would go back to freshman year of high school, and I would just tell myself like, "Yo, the shit that you're keeping secret, you hella don't have to. You can tell someone. It doesn't have to be. You don't have to hide this from people because there are a lot of people in your life who will support you and accept you. And hormones are so cool, and they're just so rad. You get tits and everything, dude."
That's
Yeah, I'll be that.
awesome. If you could make sure listeners of this podcast heard one song, which song would it be?
According to my partner who listens to music, it's Northern Downpour by Panic at the Disco, which is a good song because there's instruments and singing. So two of my favorite parts of music for sure. Uh, there's lyrics, which is like poems, but sometimes they rhyme. So it's pretty good. Everyone should check it out. Yeah, songs is good.
All right, folks, if you want to go check out that music with words, feel free or stick around for the ad break. Either way, we'll be right back. Have you ever just looked at fried carbs on a plate and thought, I need to eat those, but it doesn't taste all that appetizing? Introducing catsup. Catsup is a sugary and red syrupy paste that'll overshadow any unappreciated taste. Simply douse the unpreferred tasting object and ingest. Mmm. Thanks, catsup. All right, welcome back, folks. So, Era, what is your passion?
So my passion is, despite talking about being trans this whole time, is Magic the Gathering, specifically like the game is cool, obviously, best game ever made, whatever. But like I love the design of the cards and specifically why certain cards like feel good to play, or when you look at a card, like why it is satisfying, what makes that interesting, what makes a card design not just like a good card design for gameplay, but a good card design for like a person picking it up and reading it and being like, "Oh, cool. This makes me feel either smart or gives me ideas for things." There's so many different psychological ways that Magic the Gathering cards affect either new players or entrenched players. I think it's absolutely fascinating, like the intention that's put behind them and what sort of emotional responses want to be triggered.
So, how does this passion kind of fixate itself in your life? Like, how does it, in what way do you indulge or, just experience this passion?
I mean, I make my own, like, I love making custom Magic cards. I am working on a set that the whole idea behind it isn't that it's necessarily a well-designed set, but it's taking mechanics and ideas that are like emotionally resonant with me and expanding on them and making cards that feel cool to play, not just necessarily like are make a good play experience, but when you look at the card, it's like, oh, that triggers some level of emotional response. It also comes across in just like how I view games and how I play games with folks is like, what is the emotional response I am trying to elicit? How am I doing that? What parts of this game are making you feel a certain way, and why are they making you feel a certain way?
All right, so to the average viewer out there, do you think you can kind of give them an example of what you're talking about, or something like so that they can understand what you're talking about, or kind of where you're coming from?
Sure. So, for the layman, Magic the Gathering is a game where two players both start with 20 life, and using monsters and spells, they try to get their opponent to 0 life. And there's a lot of ways to do that. I think the card that always comes to mind when I think of like a psychologically, like emotionally charged card that just uh, is not only like resonates with more experienced players, but also teaches players how to play the game is the card Mind Stone. You know Mind Stone.
I do.
It's 2 mana, which is 2 resources, and you can use it for to tap for mana, which is another resource. But you can also sacrifice it to draw a card. And the reason I love this card is because for newer players, this game teaches you about a fundamental tenet of Magic the Gathering itself. When you have this card in the early game, it shows you that like there's a benefit of having additional resources. You play Mind Stone, and then you look at your hand, you're like, hey, on turn 3, I can play something that costs 4 mana. I've just given myself a boost over my opponent because I've accelerated myself. And it also has sacrifice to draw a card. And it shows you that, like, hey, there is a point, there'll be a point in the game where you're like, this mana is kind of unnecessary. I already have, I don't know, 11 mana, which is the resource in the game. I kind of don't need this Mind Stone. I can sacrifice to draw a card. There was a point in this game where mana was a valuable resource and the card wasn't. But now there's a point in this game where it's pivoted to where the card is the more valuable resource and the mana isn't. So in that sense, the card teaches the player, not literally, but through gameplay, of what things are valuable when within the game.
Awesome.
Which I think is just such a fascinating idea. Like, that's why I love Mindstone, because it teaches people how to play the game without explicitly teaching them. And it makes people feel smart. When you figure out, hey, I can sacrifice my Mind Stone later in the game to draw a card, this is actually really helpful and shows me that cards are valuable later, mana is valuable early. As you get more advanced, you might realize that, like, there are instances where you want to sacrifice Mind Stone early on, even though you have more expensive cards in your deck, because whatever the circumstance you've been put in makes cards feel more valuable. And it's a card that you can, as you become more and more experienced, you learn the nuances and you can interact with it in different ways. Not just that, like, you start to put it in context of other cards. Oh, this card's an artifact. I can use it to do synergies with artifacts. It makes colorless mana. There are cards that require colorless mana. There are cards that require care about drawing cards. So the value of each of those things changes, and I'm trying to think of, like, the reason I love the psychology of Magic is so much of the game is at its core what I said at the beginning. It's two players trying to get their opponent from 20 life to 0 life. But within that, there is so much nuance and so much opportunity to be taught if you are going to be open to those experiences.
That might be the best way I've ever heard Magic explained, and the kind of idea between, decision points. That's very beautiful. When did you start getting, like, first off, when did you start playing Magic? You remember how old you were?
I was about 7 years old, so I've been playing for over 21 years now.
So was it right away when you started playing at 7, or was it sometime later on where you really started to notice, like, that aspect and how much you enjoyed it in the game? Like, when do you think you really started seeing the psychology of it and appreciating it for what it was teaching the people or telling you in the card?
I think that came as, honestly, when I was in college. I have a degree in developmental psychology and a minor in psych. And Magic became a true fixation of mine when I was 14. There's a period of your life, or there's several periods of your life that are called Synaptogenesis, where your mind becomes incredibly open to learning new things, and you just start to internalize all sorts of information. And slowly, during this time in your life, those synapses go through then what's called a synaptic pruning, where the things that are being paid attention to, those synapses are run over and over and over again and kept while the other ones are trimmed away. So think of it like when you're 13, 14, 15, your mind becomes this huge open field where you can run across it. And there's all these different, like, little paths of footprints. But slowly you find the paths that you like. They lead to destinations that are meaningful to you. And so those paths become more and more trodden in. And eventually they are just stuck there. There's the grass that was there before just becomes dirt. Whereas the paths that you started taking but necessarily didn't follow through on grow back, and you don't have those paths anymore. This is why a lot of people, their favorite music comes from this time in their life, when they're 15, 16, 17, right around then. For me, this was Magic the Gathering. So during this time in my life, I internalized its rule system. I internalized the cards. I can tell you every single card from that time period when I was playing, just because it's so deeply rooted into my memory from that synaptic pruning. When I went into college and started to have a level of self-awareness that comes when you're an adult, I started to reflect on, like, why do I like this game? Clearly it was something that was important to me and it was fun, but why was it fun? And just the idea of what triggers emotional responses, and the idea that humans are naturally pattern-seeking creatures. We love to find meaning in things. We are literally biologically wired to do so. When you hear a rustle in the grass, it's because years and years of evolution have taught us that we should attend to those things.
Mm-hmm.
And we receive adrenaline and dopamine when we pay attention to something and we're rewarded for it. Magic, to me, is the pinnacle of that. When I'm playing a game of Magic and I predict a play, or I use a card correctly, or I create synergy between two cards, that's me taking disparate pieces of information, connecting them together, and getting a dopamine rush of, hey, I saw a pattern and was rewarded for noticing it. And that really began my understanding of or my deep dive into every part of Magic is capable of that. Like that card Mind Stone connects to so many different things, whether it's a new player learning how to play Magic or an experienced player learning strange ways to use Mind Stone. Both those things trigger that response of getting a dopamine rush for seeing oh, here's a cool way to use this that you saw, and you connected two things that maybe didn't make sense at first. And so that really just began this whole path of how do I trigger that in my own game designs, in my own card designs, and even in my own teaching of kids and stuff. What offers people rewarding experiences that trigger that pattern seeking tend that humans have.
Freaking rad. That was dope, man. All right. So this is gonna be a bit of a tough one to answer for this because I think there's just so many misconceptions about Magic in general, but especially when it comes to Magic and the psychology of the game. What's the biggest misconception do you think about that from the wider world?
I think there is a lot of misconception about the depth of the game, in the sense that it's a lot of games don't have those psychological rewards. At least games as we've known them traditionally. This is changing a lot as game developers learn from games like Magic the Gathering. But for games like Sorry or Life or even chess or checkers, there are rigid rules that it's less about pattern seeking and more about following algorithms. And not to say that there's no benefit to that, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's meaningfulness in finding the most optimal way to play chess or making the most optimal move in Monopoly. But the thing that is really, really fascinating about Magic is, at its core, it's not a game about gaming, it's a game about identity. The game has thousands of ways to interface with it, and there are concepts of this called psychographics that I'm not going to get into here, but the idea is there's people who love to play competitively, there's people who love to play because they like to do big splashy things, and there's people who like to play to feel smart.
Mm-hmm.
But more than that, it gets even more granular. The most popular form of Magic right now is Commander, where you pick a legendary creature to be the figurehead of your deck, and you build a whole deck around them. And that to me, that is emblematic of Magic's strengths, where you can pick, let's say, some wizard creature, right? And you could build a deck around him that is all wizards, because to you, the flavor and imagination of having a bunch of wizards is really cool. You love the idea of casting spells. And so thematically it makes sense, and you're telling this narrative story of, here's my wizard and all his wizard buddies, and they're going to do wizard things to my opponent. On the other hand, you could have the same exact card, but notice that one of his abilities cares about, I don't know, drawing the cards, right? And suddenly your deck becomes all about this mechanical aspect of it, because you love whatever part of Magic you enjoy. Part of it is drawing cards feels good to you. And so you build cards that optimize that, or you build a deck that optimizes that strategy, and just makes it feel really, it makes the mechanics of the game feel personal, because you've given them an attention that when you suddenly draw a bunch of cards in a turn, it feels rewarding, because it's that's the thing I wanted to do, and I did it. And then there's also the aspect of the same commander, the same wizard might be just an inherently really powerful card. And your goal in a game of Magic is to play the best. So you build a deck that maybe isn't about card draw or about wizards, but it's optimized to give you the most opportunities to win within the game. And so it gives you the chance to feel smart and to outplay your opponents, because one of the things that draws you to Magic is the ability to outthink other people. So when you plan long term, when you set up these turns and your opponent doesn't see it coming, or they maybe even see parts of it coming but they can't do anything to stop it, or you've set it up so well that it's really just they can't do anything but watch, that's rewarding to you because it is just so it triggers that same, like, I wanted to come here to feel smart and to be the best, and that's exactly what I did with this card. And so I think the misconception about Magic is that there's not an emotional depth to it, that it's people putting pieces of cardboard on a table, but as you do that, you're telling a narrative that you have predetermined beforehand by building your deck. And this goes from Commander, which is like 100 cards, you pick it and make it incredibly personal, to Limited, where when you sit down at a table and you draft, you pick a card and you notice there might be a strategy there. Like, it might be +1/+1 counters, and suddenly you're like, okay, I want to pay attention to these cards. And you spend a whole 30 minutes sitting down looking for cards that match together. And so you condition your brain to be like, all right, today I'm going to care about +1/+1 counters. Then you get into the game and you start using +1/+1 counters, and there's that same synapse firing of like, this is what I wanted to do and I'm doing it. And it's just, there's so much depth in terms of like, what are the rewards for playing Magic, and why the game feels good, that I think are really hard to notice on first glance, but also why when people are willing to get past the crunchy rules and kind of intimidatingness of Magic, they're like, oh, this game is actually really fun. Not necessarily because they're good at it and they're playing to win, but because they identify with some aspect of the game.
I've been playing the game since I was fourth, high school, 14, 15, something like that. I
Yeah.
think that's the most beautiful and awe-inspiring way to put it. That was truly breathtaking. Thank you for
Isn't
that.
It's such a cool game. It's
It,
literally the
it,
best game ever made.
I completely agree. And that explanation was the best explanation ever said.
Oh, I spend a lot of time thinking about this, and it's it yeah, Magic is cool. I love Magic.
Do you have a favorite non-obvious aspect that you haven't already yet covered when it comes to the psychology of Magic? Is there something that is just like so cool to you, but just so kind of buried in the, kind of deep nook and crannies of that psychology of this game that you love?
It's hard to say because I think the thing that I love is seeing other people's like personal connections to Magic, because I have mine that have come from certain parts of playing the game. But I think so. I'm a huge fan of Yuri Bronfenbrenner's ecological theory of development, and I promise this will get back to Magic. But the idea is that it's a series of concentric circles. At the center is the individual, and their development is influenced by literally their own bodies, their biology, their mental capability, what color their skin is. All these different things are right there in the middle. And then the next circle out is the people who are closest to that person. It might be family, it might be teachers, the people that person sees on a daily basis, and how those people in your life influence your development in the world. Parents who are able to tend to whatever your personal needs might be, or teachers who are paying attention are going to affect your development differently than parents who might not be as present for whatever reason, or teachers who simply can't accommodate your learning style or just don't. Uh, Within that, there's interactions like, how do your parents pay attention to your teachers? Do they talk to each other? Things like that. And then you take another step out, and it's your community. And then it goes out even further. It's the entire country that you live in. How is U.S. policy affecting you as an individual, right? If you're a trans person, maybe some laws affect how you develop and if you feel comfortable coming out as a young person. You go out even further, and it's what's called the chrono system, and it's literally the period of time that you're developing in. And a kid growing up in the 1950s is going to have a vastly different development from someone growing up in 2021. Maybe it's because of access to technology. Maybe it's because of just, I mean, it could be myriad things. And one of the things about Magic is, again, when you begin to play, certain things become resonant to you that you might not even understand. I started playing Magic competitively, like really getting into it when I was about 14, when Shards of Alara just came out. And I instantly fell in love with the ability Exalted. And Exalted is a mechanic that rewards you for attacking with one creature, because when you attack alone, it makes the creature really, really big. And it made so much sense to me as a new player, as someone who valued my life total, who wanted to block, but who also wanted to have a big creature to attack my opponent with. It scratched all those itches I wanted as a player and made the game just feel really comfortable for me. And I've been reflecting on this, and it's affected me throughout my entire Magic playing career. The deck I love to play in Legacy is called Lands, and even though the deck doesn't have a single card that says Exalted, the core of the deck is building a bunch of defenses and then attacking with one big creature to kill your opponent. It's a way of, it repeats that sort of process, and it's why I love that deck so much. I wasn't sure why. I was like, no, I'm being cool, I'm being smart, I'm being tricky. It's like, no, it scratches that same itch I had when I was a child of, I want to protect my life, I want to not attack a bunch, and then I want to attack with one big creature and kill them all in one hit. And it can transcend to all these other places in the game of Magic where you're like, no, I'm a well-rounded player, I can do whatever, but it's slightly, that time period you were really learning how to play the game will always affect it. And I think that's just so fascinating that one of the reasons we have such huge variance in Magic the Gathering is because of just like, what did cards look like when you started to play the game? And there are, of course, pros who can unlearn these things and who can move past them and notice their own biases. But I think there's a real beauty in like attending to your own biases and playing in the game in a way at the macro level of just like, what decisions are you making in the game that feel interesting to you and scratch that itch. So I think just the time you started playing Magic informs not just like what cards you like, but how you like to play the game.
So before we move on from this, I have one last question. Is there an end goal or something that you're driving towards, an accomplishment or a kind of area of doing this in your life differently in this passion with like Magic Psychology? Is there something you're headed towards, or is it just kind of a indefinitely ongoing passion as you play the game?
For the longest time, I wanted to be a Magic the Gathering designer. I wanted to work in game design, but then WotC started, Wizards of the Coast, the company that makes Magic, started just fucking things up so tremendously and just being so consistently awful to their employees that it really turned me off. So I think my I don't want to work in game design other than Magic the Gathering, because Magic the Gathering at its core, I could never work in another game because Magic is the best game, and to me there's no peer. And so I think the end goal for me right now is just to interface with Magic in a way that is interesting to me. So making my own set, playing it with people, getting feedback, and just designing Magic in a way that appeals to me and having some finished product, whether it's a cube or a set, that feels gratifying to me.
That's awesome. Do you have a name for the set you're currently working on?
Currently, the set I am working on is the idea. It's called Endless Roads of Aomir. That's a working title. It's based off one of my D&D settings. But the idea is that, kind of like Zendikar, the world is constantly changing. But it's less terrifying and scary and more like wanderlust themed. So imagine every night the entire landscape changes. You know, mountains fall and become rivers. All the entire topography of the world changes. And how does a culture that is nomadic by necessity adapt to that world? You know, like what becomes your home? Like it becomes a lot about like being in groups. It becomes a lot about traveling. It becomes a lot about, you know, not paying attention so much to not paying attention to permanence but embracing impermanence. And so I've made mechanics that play into those themes, and are also at the same time trying to be rewarding to what players find interesting. So that's currently what I'm working on.
Fantastic. All right, from the fantastic and the beautiful to the preposterous and obnoxious. Era, what is your preposterous peeve?
All right, I'm gonna sound like an asshole, and I'm probably am an asshole in this. I fucking hate people who play games slowly. I can expound the beauty of people interacting with games in their own beautiful way and how it's so cool that Magic's such an expansive game. But if you're fucking taking longer than 30 seconds on your turn, you are dead to me and you are so rude. Oh my god. Magic the Gathering or any other game is a social contract between two players. And if I'm going to take my turn, my intention is to take my turn in a reasonable amount of time so that other players can have their turn as well. And when I'm like, your go, and the other person's just like, oh, what? Sorry, I wasn't paying attention. Time to think about everything that I was going to do now. I'm like, what were you doing? We sat down here, we were going to play a game together, and you're supposed to use my time to think about your stuff, and they're just zonked out, and it is the most infuriating thing to me. I think it is, I find it to be rude because I find it to be disrespectful of my time. Now, this is probably because when I was in college, I would just sit and grind Moto constantly, where you have a little chess timer, and I was like, I want to get that to as little time as possible. And so I love finishing matches with like, in where my clock has taken less than 3 minutes and my opponent's has taken like the full 15. I mean, I don't love that, but I'm like, hell yeah, I'm so much better than you as a person. Fuck you, go fuck yourself. Your lower number means you're less than me. I don't care if I lost. And I try to be patient when I am teaching new players the game. I have a lot of patience with children. As a preschool teacher, that's part of the job. And I'm like, you know what? You're a child. You're brand new to the world. You get to have some... I will give you my patience because you're still learning. But when a grown-ass adult sits across from me at the table and they're not fucking paying attention, I have never been madder. Never been more furious at that person. And it's just, so I have been mean to people, including my own partner, when playing games like this. It's often to my own detriment, but it is something I absolutely refuse to settle on, and I will not compromise. It is rude and it is infuriating.
So the worst sound you could hear back in the day playing Legacy was, go, okay, hold on 1 second, I'm gonna spin my top.
I thank God I didn't play it during countertop era. Oh my god. Even then I was like, I'm lands. What are you gonna do? I'm just gonna yeah, sure, you got my exploration. I don't care. I've only gone to time once playing lands, and I am proud of that fact. And it was some against bitch ass slow Miracles player who was like, oh, I'm gonna brainstorm. And it's like, okay, cool. Have you ever played this deck before? And it's like, picks up hand, picks up their ponder pile, picks up hand, picks up their ponder pile. It's like, don't play this deck. Go use your 8 brain to play mono red, you child. So I'm very kind and polite.
How many times in total in Magic do you think you've gone to time?
I've gone to time less than, I can count it on, it's less than 5. I know for sure it's less than 5. Actually, that's not true. At pre-releases, I go to time a lot when I'm playing because there's a lot of new players who take a really long time.
Yeah.
Again, this is not me. This is my opponent. My partner, who I love dearly, goes to time literally every single pre-release round. I've told them before, if we ever get matched in a pre-release, I am instantly conceding to them because I don't want to yell at my partner in public or at all, really. But like, it's just not a great situation. It's also why I judge pre-release events now, because people don't read their cards and they're like, oh, what does this card do? Hey, are you from around here? Oh, cool. I know it's my turn, but tell me your life story, and I'm gonna put my hand down and listen to you while you talk. And it's the worst. It's just the worst. Um, so I've gone to time outside of pre-releases. I've gone to time maybe 3 times, and that was I think during Cobblade.
Yeah. Have you ever timed out on Moto?
Uh, yes, but because I was very high. Once. It was
uh,
once, and I was very, very high.
all right. Well, I get rid of my hiccups. We're gonna throw it to commercial break, and we'll be right back. And after that, the lightning round. Come back. Have you ever wanted to kill a small woodland creature or break a window but not had the physical strength? I know I have. Now introducing Rock. Rock comes in a variation of sizes and ready to use. Simply put Rock in your hand, raise it back to ear level, and release. See? You've got it! This ad does not condone the violence against small woodland creatures or windows, nor will it be held liable for any inability of use when coming into contact with paper. And we're back. Era, are you ready for the lightning round? Lightning round.
Hell yeah, my dude. Hit me.
Did you ever cheat on a test in school?
Yes.
Lions, tigers, or bears?
Oh my.
Caffeine or alcohol?
Caffeine.
Are hot dogs sandwiches?
Food is a social construct. Anything is whatever you want it to be.
You're having the best day of your life. What happens next? Another amazing thing or something terrible?
Amazing thing.
Bow tie or suspenders?
Neither.
Is there a god?
No.
Neapolitan or Spumoni?
I know what Neapolitan is, so that one.
Are we alone in the universe?
I don't give a shit.
No one's looking. Do you put the cart back or leave it in the parking lot?
Put it back. I'm not a criminal.
Kill the spider or get an adult?
Take it outside.
Pineapple on pizza or fist fight?
Fist fight.
Have you ever paid more for a meal than you made in a week?
Yes.
If you had the power to see the future but couldn't change it, would you use it?
No.
Red or blue?
Red.
Is there a price for you to give up your passion forever?
2 million.
Shakira's voice in Danny DeVito's body or Danny DeVito's voice in Shakira's body?
Danny DeVito's voice in Shakira's body. Stop describing me.
Wine or beer?
Beal.
Over or under?
Under.
Salsa or Lindy Hop?
Salsa.
Dog or cat?
Rabbits.
Sunny side up, scrambled or hard boiled?
Vegan.
Which do you max out first? Intelligence, charisma, or strength?
Charisma.
Can billionaires be ethical?
No.
Congratulations, you've survived the lightning round.
Hell yeah.
What lightning round question?
You told me those were yes or no, and I did not answer yes or no to most of those, so I feel like I was the winner there.
True fact. Congratulations on surviving the lightning round. What lightning round question would you like to ask me and in turn be asked of future guests?
Which one of your parents settled?
So, I'm going to say my dad. I'm going to say why. I feel like that's unfair because I know they listen. So, way back in the day, my mom doesn't remember this, but my dad met my mom when she was like writing something on a chalkboard in a church and came up and tried to like talk to her, and she did not give a fuck and basically noped, and he fucking got left standing with his head in his hands like an idiot. Q years later, my mom is at a funeral and looks across this huge like pile of people because it was like a bishop or something like that. Somebody important had died, and sees my dad in a crowd of people and is like, "He's cute." And then like my grandma heard this and went over and basically introduced them and made it happen.
Your grandma's your mom's wingman, dude? That's so
yeah,
sick.
she wingmaned him. She wingmaned her hard. It was great. But at the same time, so she picked him out of a crowd and like was kind of wanting some of that. However, on the flip side, when approached, as my grandma was walking up with this, "Hey, my daughter wants some of that," apparently all of his guy friends were making a let's get Gary married committee. So I'm gonna say that I don't know. He settled? Who settled in that situation? I can't figure that one out. I'm gonna say he settled.
I mean, that's pretty even. I feel like that's even Stevens right there.
That there's a good old fashioned coin flip.
Oh yeah.
All right. Well, as we come to a close, is there anything you want to plug, recommend, or places people could find you or your content?
Nope, don't look for me on the internet. Absolutely do not fucking pay attention to me. You should check out Dimension 20. It's a good show and I watch it all the time. That's it. I'm not gonna plug my own. I'll make content, but I love other content. That one's
Dimension
just
20.
cool. It's
All right.
it's a D&D pod. It's a D&D actual play and it's rad as hell. What else? Oh, I was reading a book recently. Oh, Gideon the Ninth was a good book. Um, you should check out I don't know. Check out Facebook. I heard that's good. Um, and go outside. Go outside. Nature's lit. Unless you're in fire zone, then probably don't go outside.
Then nature's too lit.
Nature is too lit. That was a real bazinga right there, bud. That was a real gotcha.
All right. Well, thank you, Era, for being my guest today, and special thanks to my editor Richard Ashford and my composer Joshua Gibbons. And especially thank you, everybody listening at home or wherever you found time to appreciate this. If you want to listen to more, you can find more episodes put out every Monday on SoundCloud at Passionate People and Preposterous Peeves, or on YouTube at Passionate People and Preposterous Peeves Podcast, all one word with an ampersand in the middle. And remember, folks, nobody deserves a hug.